This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on the context of those stories, and help each other understand.
Today, we'll hear from Andrew Heaton and Rob.
I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Quinn Whit now. Let's start with what you need to know with the big story.
Hello and welcome to Ignite.
Microsoft made lots of interesting announcements at the opening of its Ignite conference for IT professionals. The buzziest of them seems to be the Windows 365 Link, a $349 device that serves mostly to connect to the cloud and stream a version of Windows 11. It's a small fanless box that can connect to monitors and peripherals. It's got 3 USB-A ports, a USB-C port, a display port, an HDMI port, Ethernet, of course, has Wi-Fi 6E, runs just enough software to connect to the internet. Everything else you do with it is in the cloud. Because of that, it boots in seconds, wakes instantly from sleep. It does process video from Teams and WebEx on its own chip, but it doesn't do much else there. Microsoft says third parties can start making their own versions of Link devices as well that will use the same hardened operating system. Link is in preview for folks in Australia, Canada, Germany, Japan, New Zealand, the UK, and the US, and will come to select markets for everybody in April.
Oh my gosh, sign me up for one. I am ready. Give me a link. Give me a link.
Cute.
I love it. Windows 11 is coming to the Meta Quest 3 and 3S in December in public preview. By that, Microsoft means you can access Windows 365 in VR. Most of it will be just normal Windows on a really large virtual screen, or 3, but there will also be some volumetric apps and an API to develop plugins for new and existing 3D Windows desktop apps.
Yeah, okay, that fits. Azure wants Windows everywhere. Why not on a headset, right?
Why not?
The Windows Resiliency Initiative is Microsoft's answer to the CrowdStrike bug. It includes changes that will make it easier for client machines to recover if anything like that happens again. Hopefully it doesn't, but just in case. Quick Machine Recovery lets admins fix machines remotely even when they can't reboot properly. That was a big deal with CrowdStrike. You had to be physically there. It also includes changes to make it easier for antivirus software, like that from CrowdStrike, to operate outside of the kernel, so you don't have problems with the kernel.
Beautiful. No more turning it off and turning it back on again, hopefully. Microsoft announced its first data processing unit, the Azure Boost DPU, for powering workloads in Azure alongside a new in-house security chip called the Azure Integrated Hardware Security Module.
Microsoft Teams will get a feature that clones your voice to convert what you're saying into another language. Up to 9 languages will be supported when the preview becomes available early next year. And in addition to that, Teams is getting transcription support for up to 31 translation languages. Next year, summaries will be able to recap visual content, and Copilot Plus PCs can now use the MPU to enhance video quality.
Awesome. Azure AI Foundry will make it easier for companies to switch between LLMs in their cloud instances.
I imagine a lot of people will like that. Atom Computing will partner with Microsoft to launch a commercial quantum computer next year. The machines will have more than 1,000 physical qubits that combine to entangle 24 logical qubits using neutral atoms held in place by lasers. This is literally what they're doing. I'm just reading the words. Microsoft says it's the most logical qubits in a quantum computer yet.
I understood about, at least 25% of what you said.
We're getting quantum computers.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And today, I'm really excited to announce our zero-day quest.
Microsoft announced Zero Day Quest, a hacking event it will hold at its headquarters in Redmond, Washington in 2025. Microsoft promises to make it the largest of its kind with an additional $4 million in potential awards in high-impact areas like AI and cloud. Submissions are open now.
Man, a lot out of Ignite.
Huge, Ignite is on fire.
I see what you did there. I think a lot of people dismiss Ignite because it's for IT pros, so it's very enterprisey. But there were some really interesting things in this one, and none of them really dominated. Obviously, not everybody's going to buy a link that really is meant for businesses, but they're all very interesting to me.
Yeah, a little something for everybody. Like especially things like the being able to kind of live convert your voice into another language, like that just feels like something. There's a little something for everybody, even if you don't necessarily see it. Like if you can't see under the hood.
Yeah, if you wonder sometimes, like, okay, I hear Microsoft is a cloud company, not an operating system company. What does that mean? That's this stuff, right? them making a computer that only runs in the cloud, making it available to do live translation from the cloud for Teams and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, DTNS is made possible by you, the listener, thanks to Justin Zellers, Pepper Geesey, and Carmine Bailey. And welcome our brand new patrons, Antoine and Christian. Yay. Welcome, you guys. Thanks for joining us. There's more we need to know today, so let's get to the briefs. Reuters sources say Sony is in talks to buy Japan's Kadokawa, which owns 70% of Elden Ring developer From Software. Sony already owns 14% of From Software, so if this acquisition pans out, it would end up with 84% or so. Tencent owns the rest. And Kadokawa also publishes manga and works in anime with properties like ReZero and Delicious in Dungeon, which could feed Sony's Crunchyroll. Speaking of Sony, it's also launching the A1 II Pro focused mirrorless camera with improved stabilization and autofocus.
Instagram is testing the ability for you to tell it to forget everything it knows about you and start from scratch training its algorithm. That way, your 2020 obsession with Dalgona coffee won't continue to affect your current recommendations. When you reset, Instagram also offers the option to review who you follow and unfollow any accounts that no longer interest you. Instagram says it should roll out globally soon.
This is going to make a lot of people happy. A lot of people are going to try doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've been on Instagram for forever, right?
Yeah, same. And I just sometimes don't remember or don't know why it's suggesting things to me, but it's probably me. It's probably my fault.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, now you can just hit the reset button. You know how sometimes I tiresomely point out that an agency looking into an investigation is not the same as conducting one or even making someone guilty? Here's an example why I'm always on about that. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority announced that after considering a probe into Google's investment in Anthropic, it has decided not to open an in-depth investigation. It did not find any evidence that Google can influence Anthropic's commercial policy.
Android authorities and Android faithfuls Michelle Rahman reports a source in Google says the company plans to migrate Chrome OS fully to Android. Google said in June that it will start using parts of Android's tech stack in Chrome OS, but the source says the plan is to go further. This will be more efficient on the development side, and supposedly Google thinks it would help compete with the iPad. Rahman points out it might mean more apps for Android as well.
Oh. More on this on Android Faithful, I would assume.
Maybe. Probably.
Remember that trial in August that found that Google abused its dominant market position in online search and search text ads. Both Google and the U.S. Department of Justice get to recommend sentencing to the judge, and Bloomberg reports that the DOJ is going to ask Judge Mehta to order Google to sell off Chrome, among several other remedies. Which means that everybody's like, oh my God, they're going to be forced to sell off Chrome. But before you get too excited, remember that the hearing on these proposals takes place in April. So we're not even going to get a hearing. They're not even going to make a proposal till April. And the judge then has until next August to decide on which remedies he will order, because he doesn't have to go with their suggestion. And then Google's going to appeal. So Chrome isn't going to get sold anytime soon.
It's always that thing where we get really excited by these like really huge, wide sweeping decisions, but kind of have to remember that it's just going to take years and years and years for this to resolve. And who knows if this actually sticks, given
for sure
anything.
It usually doesn't, too.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, good or bad, depending on your perspective on Chrome
Right.
and Google. Driverless car company Nuro will expand on-road tests of its vehicles in Palo Alto and Mountain View, California, and Houston, Texas at speeds up to 35 miles per hour. Nuro's R3 vehicles are designed for deliveries and don't have room for passengers. The expanded test is to show its capabilities to potential customers who might want to license the technology.
Google Lens is expanding its shopping tool to help you when you're actually in a store. You can do all this stuff online, but now you can do it when you're like in Target. Point your camera at a product and Google can show you reviews and similar products in the location you're at. You know, like if you're interested in this, you might also like this over on the next shelf. It can also tell you if the same product is cheaper at another retailer too. To begin, it's going to work on beauty products, toys, and electronics at stores that share their local inventory with Google. So far, that includes Target, Ulta, Sally Beauty Supply, Macy's, and Nordstrom.
Oh man, as a rampant retail researcher, I am so excited for this, but also mean I'll be spending 30 minutes in the aisle instead of 10.
You and everybody else, right? Everybody's going to be standing there with their phones, just scanning everything.
Those are the essentials for today. Let's dive a little deeper in the ongoing stories and follow up. Early this month, Andrew Heaton from the Political Orphanage made a musical with the help of AI. Tom sat down and talked to him about what he made and what tools he used to make it.
Heaton, thank you for joining us. First of all, appreciate you doing this.
I am delighted to be back. Thanks for having me.
I very much enjoyed your musical. Please explain to folks what it was, because I have tried and I mostly just said, go listen, you'll enjoy it.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted you enjoyed it because it was a tremendous amount of work. And so I'm glad somebody liked it. To explain, back in July, when the first presidential debate happened between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, it was a colorful event that people had very strong thoughts on. And back in July, I went home like 11 p.m. and I stayed up till 5 and I made Debate the Musical in a very slapdash way, but it was funny. And I posted it on my podcast, The Political Orphanage, and I was surprised at the response that I got, because there were a lot of people that went, thank you. I was really bummed out about the outcome of the debate, and that funny musical you put together made me feel better. And so kind of a light bulb moment went off in front of me, and I went, I know I can predict that the presidential election is going to happen on November 5th, right about then. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen then. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a really, really good musical about the election. And so from end of July until November 3rd or 4th, I was working on a Broadway musical about our election. And it charts the course of the primaries through Biden dropping out, through Kamala being selected, and then it has its own unique ending that I did. And in order to do this, I relied on UDO and Suno and a few other side programs, and I built out my own musical using AI.
Now, I think a lot of people will jump to the conclusion when they hear me tease this topic that, he used AI to make it quicker, to make it easier. If you started in July and it took you till November, that doesn't sound quick or easy. Can you tell us a little bit about all the work that went into it? How did you do this?
Yeah, so first, let me say right off the bat, for anybody that is concerned that I used AI rather than going the traditional route of having an entire cast and a librettist and a full band, I am very, very open for somebody funding this as a proper traditional musical. Reach out to me directly, and I would love to do all of that and not do any of the AI. But as one guy with a laptop, unfortunately, I was forced to resort to using technology as a means to get me into the process. So I don't really look at it as AI making it easier. I see AI as the thing that allowed me to do it at all. There is no way that I, on my budget, with my connections, could have put a musical together where I had an entire cast and everything else. Certainly not in the time frame that I had. In terms of the time that went into it, if all you are doing is coming up with funny prompts and lyrics, and Suno and ChatGPT can write lyrics for you. In my experience, they're not good. I think the lyrics so far and all of the LLMs that I've seen are fairly juvenile and elementary. There's stuff along the lines of, let me tell you my tale. I hope you don't think it's a whale. It's just not. So, but you could theoretically just go make a Broadway musical song about the president doing a bad job in a debate, and it'll spit something out for you, and it might be serviceable. If you want it to have any coherence, you want it to have any themes in it, as my musical does. There are two separate themes that reemerge throughout that are in Act 1 and Act 2, because I've got an intermission, I've got everything. I try to treat it like a proper musical. If you're actually doing that, where there's a thematic through line, it's going to be a lot more difficult and a lot more complicated. And then it'll be further complicated because if you're just putting a hodgepodge together, you can probably pull it off. In my case, I wanted to have characters that were coming through. So there's one voice that's doing Donald Trump consistently. There's one voice doing Kamala Harris. There's a voice doing Joe Biden. There's two voices doing Joe Biden. But unfortunately, we are not at the point in this technology where I can put in give me baritone 32A. You have to generate a lot. So long story short, to make what I did, I had to write all the lyrics myself, come up with a concept, come up with the jokes. And then when I had the lyrics, basically crank out insane amounts of iterations using UDO narrow them down, prune them, then re-extend them, and then stitch them together with other iterations that are now further narrowed down by only being serviceable if they have the same voice as the previous one. So it involved this was like a spaghetti cannon at the wall. And a lot of the craft that went into it was just like taking this massive Jackson Pollock amount of information and narrowing it down to something that becomes fun and coherent.
So you would put your own lyrics in, which I think a lot of people would be interested to know, and then get a version back and go, not quite right. Let me make a couple of tweaks. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and that whole thing was a process in and of itself. So what I would do is look at rhyme structures. I've never written music before. I have written a poetry book, but I've never written rhyme structures for music. So I would write music or I would write the lyrics, and then I would run it through several iterations and listen for if it's a good tune or not. And then I would learn that, all right, that rhyme structure just doesn't work very well for music. By the way, I'm sure anybody that's properly trained in music would have been light years ahead of me in this, and I would recommend it because I'd love to see what you do. But I would come up with these rhyme structures, run it through, and I'd go, that's just not working. I thought that 8-8-10 structure would work. It doesn't seem to work. I'm going to try 10-10-7. Maybe that'll work. Yeah. And so I would kind of get to the point where I know, regardless of how the outcome of these iterations are, that the rhyme structure itself will be salient. I would do that, and then I would let's say I create maybe 20 to 40 iterations of that particular song. They all have the same lyrics, and I'll listen and I'll go, okay, now I have to narrow it down. So like if it's a song with Donald Trump in it, I have to get a male voice that's a white male voice that is a tenor, and then you're narrowing it down and going, okay, which one do I actually like the sound of? Then there's a ton of stuff that I think will be ironed out. I'm very excited about this technology. I think it'll be ironed out over the next 6 months, if not year, where just weird things would be pronounced weird. Like the word neocon, it drives me nuts. The word neocon is neocan. I just couldn't get it.
They couldn't do neocan, con. They couldn't do the con part.
Couldn't do the con. Well, because I would try to play with it. So I'd go in and go like neo KHAN or something.
Right.
So I'd try to do it phonetically. One of the other things that I would do is I would find a song that I really liked. I liked the basic beat of it, and then I would crop it, and then I would regenerate it. So it was almost like coming up with different branches on a tree. And then I could kind of go from there and massage it in directions that I wanted to go. Or in the case of the songs that were thematic, I could take something and sort of use it as a base template for a later one. That way it would presage what was going to happen later. But yeah, it involved a lot of iterations, a lot of editing, and a lot of massaging to get it anywhere near being a coherent piece.
It strikes me that not only would you not have been able to afford to employ people to do this, but it would have taken much longer if you had people doing this, if you kept going back for iterations and saying, please change this, please change that.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. Every year on the Political Orphanage, I do, or have done, I don't know if I'll do it this year because this took a lot out of me, but every year on the Political Orphanage, I usually do a Christmas special. I will note there's no AI involved or has never been involved in the Christmas specials. They're all comedy sketches. And there's a certain amount of favors that I can call in where I call up friends and go, I think you're very funny. Would you appear in this comedy sketch that I'm doing? Which I did in the musical too. The people talking are regular people.
Although you have the voices of Biden and Trump.
I do. That's me.
Yeah, that's you talking, but then you altered it, right?
I altered it. There's a program called, what is it? It's not Vocal Remover. I think it's Voice.ai. Voice.ai has a thing where you pay like $20 a month or something like that. And you can upload your voice and then transmogrify it into, in my case, Biden and Trump, and with varying levels of success. But you definitely know who they are. The other voices are actors that friends that I had that did the voice acting for me. For something like a sketch comedy thing where the commitment of my friends to work for free on my show is an hour, they're happy to do that. If I were looking to get actors who are going to do multiple rehearsals, and are going to put up with me changing things as they go on. Or in this case, I was planning to do 5 different variations of it, where the ending would be different depending on the outcome of the election. Having all of that occur as well would have been difficult. Yeah. And all of this would have been surmountable. And I should note, I love musical theater. It's why I did this. And I would love to have an entire cast that I could adequately pay to participate and pay them for all of that time. I do not have the funding to have 5 different full-time actors do, a month of rehearsals and then do subsequent productions of it. It's just literally impossible. But as I said, I think that this technology is something that democratizes things. It allows schlubs like me to actually play around and get in it and get more appreciation for the whole process.
Before we go, I know a lot of people will want to know what you used, and you've mentioned the tools as we went along. But can you kind of summarize what tools you use so people could maybe take a stab at doing this themselves?
Yes, I primarily used Udio, which I've found to be the best. So the 2 that I'm aware of that are really, really useful for what we're talking about are Suno and Udio, and they're kind of in an arms race right now where they go back and forth every month on new features. And so while I was using most of the time I was working on this, I think Udio was superior, but I think Suno has now jumped over and it's superior in various ways. But in general, at the time that I recorded, Udio was very good at just the quality of voices. Suno is now caught up, but at the time, Suno sounded kind of striated. It sounded like when they take like really poppy music and run it through an over processor, it sounded a bit like that. Whereas Udio sounded much more organic and natural. I don't think you'd frankly know that it was AI unless you were on the lookout for it. Udio was the one that I mostly used, and you could put in the lyrics. If you go to the advanced features, it'll give you 30 seconds or 2 minutes. I would go to 2 minutes. I'd put in the lyrics. I would note verse 1, chorus, bridge, verse 2, all of that, and then crank it out and then further crop it and extend it. Suno, where I used Suno that I found useful is that Suno has a feature where you can upload a track and then you can make a cover of that track in a different musical style. So I had previously made a lot less AI because it's very much a monologue episode. But the week before, I had done a tribute to A Prairie Home Companion by Garrison Keillor. It's very much following that format. And so I took the theme show to the Political Orphanage and I ran it through there as a bluegrass thing. So you could do that. But with the AI musical, I would take one of my favorite songs, which is Donald Trump singing about how much he misses Joe Biden as the election actually gets competitive. I took that song. I used Vocal Remover to remove the Trump voice so that it was just the instrumental. And then I fed that into Suno and said, give me a Broadway musical version of this. And it's already a Broadway musical version, but what it ended up doing was giving me lots of variations of that central theme that I could use as a bed of music for any narration that I wanted to do. It would still be presaging that eventual song. But I would say primarily I used Udio by like 90%, Suno by 10%, and then for the very meandering Joe Biden monologues, I used voice.ai. There's one Trump monologue in there, voice.ai as well. And then a program called vocalremover.org, I believe. Or if you put in vocalremover.org in your search results, I think that would turn up the correct thing. There are several programs like that where you can add a song, you can remove the voice or isolate the voice. And I found that to be quite helpful over the course of editing things.
Fantastic, Heaton. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. If people want to find out more of what you've got going on, like listen to this episode, for example, where should they go?
I would say if you're remotely interested in this, check out the Political Orphanage. This episode is on any podcast platform that you've care to go to. It's called Our Dumb Election, the Musical. I will note for everybody, I realize everybody's in a very different emotional space right now. There's a very wide range of emotional latitude. Please note, one, I am a comedian, and as such, I made fun of everybody. There's nobody in this that comes off as the good guy. Like it's a big hole that I'm shoveling jokes into. And the reason that I did that was that I anticipated people being sad about the outcome of the election. I did not know who would be sad or who would be happy. But for the sad people, this is more for you, because I wanted to give people some jokes so that you could, have some pep in your step, even though you're worried about things. So my point is, if you're like musical, I don't want to celebrate. Really, if you just like laughing and you like musicals, this is for you. You're not going to feel targeted. You can find it on whatever podcast platform you want. I also put it up on YouTube. An animator named Paul Gibson teamed up with me so that we've got animation. Looks kind of Muppet-ish nice. as the people are singing, but there's visuals and things, primarily audio, but it's not static. So you look for the Political Orphanage on YouTube or whatever podcast platform you want. And then the relevant episode is Our Dumb Election, the musical.
Fantastic. And if you were like, wait, did Heaton say he did a book of poetry? The book is called Los Angeles is Hideous. So you can look for that as well. Thank you again, Heaton.
Thank you, Tom.
Have a thought about something on the show, but don't know our email address? Well, here it is. Email us at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Today, some perspective on data caps from Rob. Rob Bugs Life writes, I love the idea of data pods, and I can see companies providing a service, storing and managing that. The big question is, what kind of incentives could be put in place to make it worth the effort for companies and websites to request data from everyone's pod instead of what they already do? As Heaton says, you can only legislate or manage incentives, not outcomes. So I don't know how up to speed you are on this one, but the solid project from Tim Berners-Lee is going to be tested in Belgium. Mm-hmm. And what Rob is saying is like, that's great. You've got one test going on, but how are you going to get everybody to want to do this? And I was looking around at the Solid and InRep websites both, and essentially what they say is it would reduce the costs for companies because they don't have to keep all the data, right, since somebody else is going to keep it. And it improves customer relations. So one motivation would be the fact that if we want it, then companies who are competing will be wanting to get us to sign up for theirs by saying, yeah, we support it.
I mean, I really like it. I think that just generally consumers are a bit more aware of privacy and security. I just always wondered with companies like the actual, I mean, I know I'm seeing that it's like, reduce costs overall, but it's always that entropy that companies generally have with their own infrastructure that gets it, to move to something else. But I mean, we should do this. It's pretty cool.
I mean, I've been saying that for years, and I'm not 100% hopeful that it's going to catch on, but I'm glad it's getting some momentum. And Rob is asking the right question, which is, can you get companies to be motivated to do this enough? And maybe if you get enough governments like what's going on in Flanders to do this, that starts to build the momentum, which puts the pressure on companies because people say, well, I've got all my data already in this pod that I did it for the government. Mm-hmm. Why don't you support that? Maybe that puts the pressure on them. I don't know.
I wonder if there's something they can also get like a lot of smaller companies, newer companies on board. And then a lot of times when the smaller companies do the cool new thing and customers are aware and like it, that kind of pushes the hand of like mid to like bigger companies. I mean, maybe not Google or something like that, but like it can. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever the next TikTok or the thing, if they did it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, or advertise it on TikTok. Get those TikTokers caring about, data isolation and data costs. I mean,
Solid needs to do a TikTok campaign. You're absolutely
exactly.
Right.
I mean, that's how we reach the young people. Oh my gosh. That's how we reach the young people these days. Well, thanks to Andrew Heaton and Rob for contributing to today's show. And thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show.
Yeah, this was a bit of an experiment, we know. So, we're going to go back to the other regular format tomorrow. But let us know what you think of this. This show is made possible by our patrons at patreon.com/DTNS. Live version on YouTube and Twitch. Find details at dailytechnewsshow.com. Talk to you tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts. Helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.